Hello everyone, right back at you again, talking about the old world and specifically about some skirmisher missile unit tactics. Um, in this video, we'll go over the use of skirmishers in your the old world games, what they can do for you in the battlefield. I'll mostly base this off skink skirmishers, because I'm, as a Lisbon player, mostly focused on them, but the tactics you use for skink skirmishers are also readily available for other faction skirmishers, like for example the peasant bowman you see down here. Before I start off, I thought it might be a good thing to run down like the important skirmisher rules once again. Um, First off, they have 360 degrees of vision and the freedom of formation. They don't have to rank up. And as long as they're unit strength 1 models, they get -1 to hit, and they do not force panic in non-skirmisher units. Skink skirmishers are sort of the golden standard for skirmisher units. They are, I think, pretty clearly the best skirmisher unit in the game. They're pretty cheap for the amount of wounds and the amount of the armor save you get, and the best thing, of course, that you get is the poison shots, which makes it so they are lethal into most things you will put them at, actually. Because, well, anything that has to take armor saves, um, uh, just not having to move to roll just makes the damage a lot more higher than you would maybe think. And of course, they're upside as well. They're in core, so you can fill up your core with it. So they are what I think you should compare other skirmisher units to in their use. So, but skirmishers, why would you take them? What are they good for? Um, Well, the first thing they can do is, of course, just kill stuff. Especially for skink skirmishers, you want to look for what I would call efficient targets. Efficient targets are those with a high toughness, preferably low saves, and preferably also low wounds per point. So what do I mean by that? Well, of course, you're going to be shooting at them. You're going to have poison, so their toughness is not going to matter. But they did have to pay in points value for that toughness at the beginning of the game. So, for example, generally monsters, D6 models are often nice targets because they're often expensive, but they cannot use their defense against you. So if you're shooting with kings, you want to shoot at stuff with high toughness. You generally want not as good saves though, especially things with a 2-up save. They will still generally shrug off like the 2-3 poison wounds you do on average per volley. So especially when you're looking at dragons, if the dragon just has a 4-up save, that's a lot more interesting than they have a 2-up save. And you also want low wounds per points. So what I mean by that is you might think that, for example, infantry, like Star Wars Warriors or something, might have a pretty okay toughness, but relatively they have a lot of wounds per point invested. Like for example, a block of 20 Star Wars Warriors. Um, they were a lot cheaper than a dragon. It's 20 wounds, and the dragon only has 6 or 7 wounds. Well, it may cost more than double um, what the Saurus Warriors cost. So these are all things you wanna keep in mind when looking at targets. Generally, this means that especially monsters with a worse save are good targets. So not the 2-up save dragons, but for example, dragons with a 4-up save. For example, the Tomb King dragon, which forces you to reroll the wound roll, is a very good target. Because, well, you don't have to roll the wound at all. So you bypass that very strong magic item, the Armor of the Ages, completely. And for example, war machines are often a very good target because they often have a very high toughness 6 or 7 against shooting, only 3 wounds, and a bad save. So war machines are often the best target to get down. But I mean, that's sort of the first easy part, doing damage. But they can do a lot more for you. They can win what I would call the skirmisher war. A lot of units have, a lot of armies have sort of these roadblock units, or they try to put out useless units to block bigger units, maybe get rid of other smaller units of their opponent. Because king skirmishers are very cheap at it, they can often avoid being killed by them, kill them in return, then annoy the opponent and get their value that way. Said before, there's also great war machine hunters, especially if your skirmishers, like for example, skirmishers can do it because they can do everything because they're awesome. Um, they are good at war machine hunting and going into your opponent's back lines and get rid of those pesky cannons or bolt throwers or whatever they have that are shooting at your other units. They're also very good generally at behemoth hunting. One thing I should add about that is that especially against units with a large target rule, you see in the image on the right, like all the skinks in the image can still shoot at this large target. So you're often able to, because you do not want your skinks to be chargeable or like be engaged in close combat, you can also always put them in like all sorts of weird locations, especially when shooting at behemoths, like put them close together, like shoot them in two ranks or even more ranks if you have the space for it, to shoot at those large targets that are often good targets. And another good thing they can do is what I would call winning deployment. What that completely is, I will go into later. Generally, the best formation, as it's a free formation you want your guys in, is what I call the semi-checkerboard pattern. So you put them down like this on the screen. You have like this tiny part of the base of the back model still visible, where it can look at and can still shoot. And this is the way where they have the smallest footprint, the most possibility to shoot other models. And that's what you want to do because especially when you have multiple units of skirmishers, they can get into each other's way, they can get in the way of other units. This is like the most compact way to get as many of them close to the enemy, close to shooting and not being annoying. Another thing you can do is what I sort of call the war machine loop, like especially for cannons or something. And you can make like a tiny gap between your skirmishers where a cannon can shoot through, and if somebody would be shooting back at the cannon, you would be having hard cover. So that's also sort of a nice small trick to keep in mind, that you can like keep a tiny gap for your war machines to look through your skirmisher, while in a normal rank and file unit that wouldn't be quite possible. Well, I said something earlier about winning deployment. I think, especially for newer players, and not as competitive players, deployment is often overlooked. I would say it's the most important thing. Um, I think it often you can decide the game in deployment, especially if your opponent does not know what they're doing. Um, and basically, the key thing you want to keep in mind is that during deployment you want to choose the matchups where your units are getting into. So you really want to think a few turns ahead, think about where they're going. Unless they're boosted by spells, units in the old world are often kind of slow. So they're often going to fight whatever across the field of them, or what is quick enough to catch up to them. So you want to sort of, well, maybe counter deploy or like put units in front of other units that you want to fight, because you'll probably win that fight. So a very simple example is that if your unit maybe puts down a big unit of infantry, you want to put your dragon across from it, or a strong dragon-esque unit, because the infantry is often not going to kill the dragon, they're not going to get away from the dragon, and you can run in there and destroy it. So that's a very simple idea of thinking up when talking about the deployment counter. Well, keeping that in mind, keeping in mind that when the important units go down, you want your units against the units where you want them to fight to, and you don't want to be countered yourself. Skirmishes can be used to sort of delay the decision of where you deploy units. And especially skink skirmishers, because you have so many of them, are pretty good at that. So I want to walk you through the deployment of one of the games that I played lately against Chaos Dwarfs. This is not the exact deployment, I don't know it exactly anymore, but it's basically the general idea of what happened in that game. Matchup was this, so I was running tons of skinks as I should, some Scar veterans on Garnos, some Bastillodons to have some firing, and he was like running a big infantry block, 2 steam tanks, a wizard on one of their big flying pigs, and 1 artillery piece. Not the most competitive game, it was more for fun, but it's still, I think it gets the point across. So if we start a deployment, the first thing that I did, and the first thing that I often do, is as the Lizardman player in the bottom, I just put down units of skinks. Skinks are pretty okay into anything. They're so cheap that they do not necessarily need to kill stuff, so you can just run them forward, like skirmish a bit, flee. So I often just start with a line of skinks in the important parts. You want to block off yourself, so you want to keep a little bit of space. But that led to me being able to sort of wait where my important things of my opponent would go. Well, he pretty quickly ran out of sort of cheap things to put down. And I think the main mistake that he made is he put one tank completely on the flank and one tank in the center. And that's what I tried to capitalize on in the game. So what happens next? This is the full deployment. I put some Bastiladons behind the forest so they could walk into it and start shooting. And I put my, as I had the last deployment, I put my Carnosaurs completely to the left, away from the tank. And because I delayed where I was putting down my stuff, at the end of the day, I sort of just completely refused my right flank, my opponent's left flank, and just not give his cannon anything to, or his tank anything to really do at the beginning of the game. Because it's relatively slow, it would just have to stumble into the game, and hopefully by that time my Scar veterans had enough time to actually take care of the other stuff in his army. So I thankfully also had turn one. I basically moved up like this, and at this point the game is already looking fantastic for me before really any dice apart from the first turn dice are rolled. Like I was able to shoot off the like small skirmisher units he had on his left. I was able to use my Scar veterans to charge the tank, which was alone and not really supported. He tried to support them with his flying pig later, but basically the hitting power of his army was all just too late. It was all getting together too slowly, and like this, by delaying your decision and then sort of keep making a good matchup for your units, I believe my two Scar veterans into one tank are a great matchup. Even one of them should kill it eventually, but two of them will do it pretty quickly. Will lead to won games, and I think this is an example of a game that was close to won in deployment. And some other things. What are some other sort of tricks you can do with skirmisher units? The main thing, this is just more general game tactics. Main thing you do with them is what I call a ring around the rosy. So you keep just walking outside of line of sight of of units. You just go close to them, shoot them, then walk to the side. And if they turn, well, you just do it again. So they need multiple units to get rid of you. But at that moment, they're like investing hundreds of points into, yeah, well, dealing with your small little skink unit. It's probably not worth it for them. So if you're doing that, especially with multiple skink units, that's sort of the base thing I'll look to do. And I'll, of course, prefer to do it into efficient targets. One other thing they can do is screen, of course. Skirmishers from themselves get the -1 to hit. So people generally really don't want to shoot into them, but if you put them in front of your other unit, if they shoot them, they get minuses to hit because of cover, or maybe even heavier cover. So it sort of makes a lose-lose for your opponent because your entire army now gets minuses to hit. So if they're like gun lining or something, and they care about ballistic skill modifiers, that will be very annoying to them. Difficult part about it is that it's of course important to make it so that you can still do your charges. Like it's sometimes see people like moving their screens up quickly with the rest of their army, but not really moving them out of the way quickly enough so that their own charges will not be constricted. So make sure to get them away quickly enough. One important thing is what I sometimes see new players do is like charge with their skirmish units as soon as they cannot shoot anymore. Certain moment, like around turn 3, 4, 5, stuff will get engaged. Maybe everything in the game will be in combat or dead, and then your skirmishers are sort of standing there like, well, we do not have anything to shoot. Like 99% of the time, do not charge them into combat. Don't think, oh, like I got a rear charge. It's like nice. Like you will bleed combat resolution to your other units because they often die very quickly. They're not meant to be in close combat, especially skinks are only toughest two. They when they hit, they try to tend to dry up like they fall apart like wet paper. And the combat resolution that you gain from being in a rear flank is often like lost by just being hit on, and you're not avoid you're giving your opponent those 3 points. So you don't want to do it. You never want to charge them. Basically, the only things I can imagine is like maybe you want to charge a war machine, but generally you can shoot the war machine to death better, and well, then being dead is better than you fighting and maybe even losing that fight. Or like a single wizard, maybe you could charge them if you have some reason for it. Generally, still, I just shoot it to death still. So, like, if you're not sure, it's best to just never charge your king skirmish into anything. Another thing skirmishes can do is what I call charge redirecting. Um, a lot of people think you cannot really redirect with skirmishers because the enemy actually forms up to you instead of the other way around. Like normally with other units, you can angle um, your units in a way so that you're not over into them. And skirmisher units have to align to the enemy that's charging them, but it's still possible to charge block with them. I'll show you in this example right here. The Chaos Knights in the picture can definitely see the Scarvet, but they cannot make the wheel to get into contact with the Scarvet. And when they would charge the King Skirmishers, they have to go in the straightest, shortest route. So they would go straight forward, and when they kick the King Skirmishers into mush, they would either keep running or reform at the spot. And in both situations, your Scarvet is free to, well, charge them then or do something else or run past them. So even though your skirmishers have to form up to the enemy, keep in mind that they still have to take the closest route to you, and that after that they would still have to go straight forward. So you can still use that as a way to get out of the way. They're not like allowed to make a wheel to then start facing you. If the shortest way is a full frontal way, they have to take it. There's only ever one way, and correct charge ends up, and not multiple ways. Um, what I would say are the takeaways of what you can do with skirmish units. I'd say they're great at controlling the board, getting the matchups you want, um, denying points, like redirecting charges, and making it so wizards cannot leave the units there. They should be massively annoying for your opponent, and it should really constrict their plans. And they, especially King Skirmish, are great at doing like chip damage, especially on those good targets that I described before. However, they are not perfect. Uh, Most skirmisher units are countered pretty hard by undead or rise spells. For example, in Tomb Kings, they can heal like their dragons, like 4, maybe even 6 wounds a turn. And so you're like 2 shots per turn, like trying to chip it down over time just doesn't work because they heal quicker than you do damage, and then you're not doing anything while they are shooting at you, and then all your skinks get very sad very quickly. While especially undead, if you lock them in close combat, if a rise model is locked in close combat, they cannot actually arise themselves. That's a way of actually stopping that, but once again, you don't want to do that with skinks, so you do not. They're not most used in the undead matchups, and of course they're countered pretty hard by magic missiles as well. One well-placed fireball, 2d6 strength 4 hits. It wounds the skinks on 2s because they're only toughness 2. They make very quickly make a mockery of any skirmisher unit because they do not suffer the -1 to hit penalty. Oh, that's what I wanted to say about skirmishes today. I hope maybe learned something, taken something away from the video, and I hope to see you all again sometime soon.